Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody, for our archery elk pack dump. My name's Jack. I'm here with Dylan. We're here in the onX office here in Missoula, Montana. And tonight we're going to run you through a couple of different setups gear-wise for archery elk hunting. Dylan's going to run through kind of like a 2-3 day backpack style hunt. I'm going to run you through my loadout for just a day hunt, either hunting from the house or going back to a base camp, a wall tent, a truck, something like that every night. So a little bit different style there. While we wait for people to roll in, a few housekeeping things. Your camera and audio are turned off, so we can't see you or hear you. So if you have background noise, no worries there. If you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A box down below. That's going to be the best way for us to keep track of them and to answer as many as we can. We're also going to be doing a giveaway. We're giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts towards the end of the class, so make sure you stay tuned for those. And I forget anything?
I don't think so. This will be posted on YouTube after the fact. So
yep,
if you have a buddy who wanted to check it out, or if you missed something, maybe the brand or type kind of something, YouTube, it should be on what, tomorrow?
Yep, it'll be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow morning, early afternoon, depending on how fast everything uploads. And then we'll email everybody tomorrow as well with that video link. So if you don't want to go searching on the YouTubes, you'll have it sent right to your inbox.
Yep, cool. And the other thing too is we are not gear experts, right? We work at onX, we hunt a lot. I've tried out a lot of different gear, so we have that expertise, but just because it works for us doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be the perfect thing for you, or vice versa. Maybe something that I've tried, boots are a prime example, boots and packs. My particular feet might love a specific brand of boots and Jack's might hate them and vice versa. So this is just what works well for us. Over the years, what I've found personally that works well for me. I've got some new pieces that we'll dive into that I'm testing out this year. Who knows? I might not like them after the first week and switch it back up. So I just want to throw that out there. There's a lot of different ways to go about the gear question. And to be honest too, you don't need the top of the dollar best of everything to be successful. It's nice to have, but it's absolutely not necessary. And totally understand there's certain times and situations where it's like, hey, I need a new pair of boots this year. I'm probably going to wait on a new sleeping bag and vice versa.
Yeah, just get out there and hunt. If you don't have all the best gear, so what? You're not going to kill anything on the couch. Don't let that keep you from thinking, oh, I can't go elk hunting because I don't have X, Y, or Z. Man, do it. And then you might figure out, hey, I need a couple of pieces here. I need to change this out, or maybe figure out, man, what I got's enough and it works for me. So you don't know until you go. So cool. With that, I'll step behind the computer here and let Dylan take you through his loadout.
Awesome. So as Jack said, I'm going to kind of walk through. I do a lot of day hunting from the pickup hunting, from a camper sometimes. I also do some like long weekends out of a bivvy type tent. And that's kind of what I'm going to walk through right now. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it again. But this one's like I would say like a 2-night, 3-day type hunt is what I'm about to show you guys. So we'll dive into the pack in a second. I'll touch briefly on a few other items. So essentially this is like how I get to a trailhead or an area where I'm going to park my pickup. Obviously I've got my boots in the pickup. So these are Schnee's boots. Again, this is one of those things you just kind of have to try them. Different feet, different types of boots. I really like the Schnee's right out of the box. They've done really well for me, completely waterproof, good support. The cool thing about Schnee's is they have everything from like a super early season lightweight boot all the way to like a stiff, more mountaineering type and everything in between. So check those out. Also, if you're an elite member, we do have a discount on Schnee's. So right now is archery season. That's again too, we should preface this. What I'm going to show is like 3 days of archery elk hunting. So it's going to pretty much be similar for like a rifle deer hunt, minus like shelter, stove, obviously temperatures and weather play a big role into that. But again, what I'm showing is like September archery elk. So The bow I'm shooting this year is a Matthews Phase 4. I really like it. It's new to me this year. It's a brand new bow. It's by far the quietest bow I've ever shot, hands down, not even close. Really like it. It's shooting well. I'm excited to get out here in the next week or so and chase elk with it. We won't dive in too much to the specifics, but black gold sight, I'm shooting the dual track. Pros and cons for sure. You know, I know a lot of guys that shoot like a 6-pin sight. I tend to shoot a single vertical pin really, really well, like way better than like a 6-pin sight. And so the dual track with 2 pins for me is kind of the perfect mix. So I leave mine set on 30 and 40 yards. So all the way out to 40 yards, I don't mess with anything. I just shoot it. Past 40, I get a range, and then I can dial to the exact yardage. Easton Axis arrows, 5mm. They've always done great for me. They're a little bit on the heavier side, but not too bad. Perfect for elk. These ones are right at like 502 grains, completely set up. So that's my bow set up for this year.
What broadhead are you shooting?
Broadheads, good question. Very controversial topic, same as bullets. It seems like, you know, somebody might love a particular broadhead, the next person might hate it, and vice versa. But I'm shooting the Evolution Outdoors broadheads this year. I've had excellent luck with them. I shot a bull last year with them. Performed flawlessly, like it was perfect. That bull made it like 30 yards. Blood trail was huge. And yeah, so Evolution Outdoors is what I've been shooting. I was turned on to that one from Dan and Brian over at Eastman's. They've both harvested a lot of animals. Nobody that I know shoots as many animals as those 2 guys combined with bows. And that's their broadhead they use. And so I trusted it, and it worked awesome last year. So with that, I'll run you through kind of my bino packs set up here, and then we'll dive into the goods, the pack stuff. So I've got kind of a mix here. I have several different bino harnesses. This particular one is an Everly stock bino harness. I have all sorts of different brands on here. So I've got the Everly stock harness. I really like it. I've got Marsupial rangefinder pouch here. Also makes an absolute awesome harness. And then an FHF pouch. So I've got 3 different brands here. I tend to like this pouch the best out of them. This rangefinder closure the best, and this one for the straps the best. So I just mixed it up. The reason I really like this rangefinder pouch is it's magnetic. And so as I'm stalking or something, I can quietly just open it and leave it open. And then I have quick access to a rangefinder. I can range, just silently set it back in the pocket. It's not loud, it's not cumbersome, it's right where I need it. It's, you know, effective. Rangefinder this year, right now, currently I'm using the SIG Kilo 24 ABS, I believe, or the 5K. I can't remember exactly which one. It does apply ballistics for rifle, but also has an archery mode in there. Binos, Vortex, Razor, 10x42s, really like the size of them. Here's a little tip for folks who like to put their binos on a tripod sometimes. So I have this little clamp, and I've tried lots of different ones. They seem to be, for me personally, they seem to be really like heavy and bulky for what they are and how little I tend to use it. This one is the, I'm going to butcher the name, AZIAK. Aziac?
Aziac, I believe.
Aziac bino clamp. So it just stays on there, and it's a little arca on the bottom. Probably tough to see that. But it just stays on there at all times and it's not in my way in anything. But when I do have a tripod, I can just clamp it right there to one side, and then I can glass off of that. So over the years, I lost a handful of those different adapters. And again, like they would always seem to be really heavy and bulky for what they were. So this one's just always on there. Another one, I really like these Field Optics Research little flip up cups. So if I'm glassing, there's sun glaring in one side, you can just flip up one side or both. It actually makes a huge difference. And I think they're like $15. Don't quote me on that, but they're really cheap. So there's that over here. I always have a knife on me at all times. This one is our Montana Knife Company onX Hunt exclusive. So if you're an elite member, you can purchase this knife. We're gonna have different drops coming, so stay tuned for that. But really cool knife, Montana Knife Company, awesome guys, really an awesome company. They're local, right next down the road from us, and I'm looking forward to using that this year. So in my front pouch, I won't bore you guys with all of the little things. I always leave my tags in here all year round. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, if I'm fishing or anything, I'm most likely always going to have my bino harness. And so my tags are always in there. So I always know where they're at. A few extra Allen wrenches in there for my bow, the key ones, etc. And then over here, I've got a couple just handy calls, some diaphragms. Got a little handheld flashlight. And if you have any questions on like particular, I don't want to dive into the brand and exactly which one everything is, but if you have any questions on like, you know, what flashlight or whatever, throw those in the Q&A and we can get to them at the end for sure. Got my hearing protection in there. And then I always like pistol or bear spray just on my bino harness at all times. So right now I've got my Rasco pistol holder here. I usually carry a Glock 10mm. I also have a 44 Magnum. But I really like that Glock 10mm and it stays right here. That way, if I drop my pack and I go on a stock, or, you know, if I'm close to the pickup and I'm like, probably, you know, I don't need bear protection right here. I'm just going to go walk 15 yards and peek over and glass this drainage real quick or something. It's always right here. So, if it's not my pistol, I've got bear spray underneath right here as well. And then some sort of, satellite communication device. So, with that being said, again, if you have questions on any one particular thing, we can definitely dive into it at the end. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on little nuanced things. So, all right, here is my pack. Basically, again, for like let's just say like an extended weekend. I'm gonna bivvy hunt. I want to be close to the elk. If I hear a bugle, I want to stay on it. I don't want to have to hike 2 miles back to the pickup sort of situation. So this is what I'm going to take. We'll start with the big one. This pack is an EXO. It is their K4 2200. I've got the 2200 and I also have the 5000. The 2200, this was actually a really good exercise for me to see if I could do like a 3-day in a 2200. I typically am somebody who packs more than what I need. And then I regret it as I'm hiking up the mountain with more weight than what I actually need to carry. So this was a good exercise for me to cram everything in here, and I could do it out of the 2200 for a 3-day. It's tight for me personally. I know there's a lot of folks out there that would be able to do more than 2 to 3 days in this particular bag. If I was going to do a lot of like 3 days, I would do their 3600, I believe it is, would be perfect. But also for like a one size fits all, the 5000 I think is absolutely perfect. Because at the end of the day, the 5000 compresses so tight that you're never feeling like it's big and bulky and loose and, you know, stuff's not organized. But then again, if you need to do like 7 days, it's big enough to expand to that. Or even if you're not doing 7 days, I went to Alaska to Kodiak a couple of years ago and I took that 5000 or, you know, EXO's equivalent, I believe it was 4600 or something of that nature. And that was just kind of one of my duffel bags. So we were hunting out of a boat, so I didn't need to do like 7 days out of my backpack, but it doubled as like a duffel bag where I put all of my camo and stuff in there as well. So anyways, K4, it's an awesome pack setup. I really think that they improved a lot between the K3 and K4 for me anyways. So I'll kind of start at the outside and work my way in. I always like to take a little sitting pad, glassing pad. You can use it as like a little pillow for midday naps. Honestly, I got this one off Amazon. I know there's some nicer ones out there, but essentially it's like one of those trifold, almost like sleeping pads that's cut to the right size. So super small, incredibly lightweight. I've used it again for glassing. Most of the time in the snow, or if it's raining, if the ground's wet and you're going to be sitting there, super easy. Or again, just something cushiony to put your head on in the middle of the day. So I always have that with me. I always keep my bugle tube handy, even if I'm not going to be bugling a lot, depending on the time of year. It just makes sense to leave it right there. So as the pack is on, I won't fully put it on, but so as I'm hiking or anything, I don't need to take my pack off to get to my tube. It's just right here. So I can grab it out. I can do what I need to do with it, and then silently just set it right back down, and that's the spot for it. So I really like that setup. I know there's a couple of different companies, brands that make this bugle tube holder. Essentially, it's like a PVC pipe that you can slide your bugle tube into. So I really like that from the placement of it. And as we kind of go through things, I'm probably going to just set things either up here on the side. Bugle tube, born and raised, Callco. Love those guys. They make awesome calls. And honestly, for this, you know, for a bugle tube, I really think they nailed it with the size and the weight. It's super lightweight. It's a big enough tube that you get a lot of volume out of it. But again, it's really, really light. So in the past, have struggled with, okay, I'm not really going to be bugling a ton this weekend potentially, or, you know, I may not even need it. Why do I want to carry a giant heavy bugle tube around? So I really think they nailed it with this one. It's perfect size and still really light. I've got some water strapped on the outside. What I typically do is I carry more than what I need, but pretty much enough water to get to like a base camp. If I know there's going to be water in the area, no sense packing in, you know, 5 liters of water if there's going to be a stream or a creek that you can filter water right by camp. So what I would typically do, again, depending on how far I'm hiking, I would carry 1 or 2 of these and then a water bottle. I really like these ones. They're platypus. I believe it's a liter. I think it's a liter. Okay, so like a liter of water here. And then they collapse down into nothing. I'm not a big Nalgene fan because you drink your water and then you still have a big Nalgene bottle. Yeah, you can strap it to the outside. But these weigh pretty much nothing and collapse down. So 1 or 2 liters of water. Open up this side. So I always keep this one handy. So this is my water filtration system. I've used quite a few over the years. I've used SteriPens. I'm gonna butcher or forget a few of the names of them, but I used a SteriPen for like 2 to 3 seasons. It worked fine, but ever so often I would get like a false reading and then it would be positive. And it was like I didn't do anything different. So I was wondering why. So I think that they work really well when they work. But I really like the Sawyer squeeze. There's a couple different brands. But I personally like the Sawyer. That's the one I've had. It's super light, super easy. And the cool thing about this is, again, they're kind of the same platypus style water bladders. You can fill it. So like on the top of this one, I have duct tape and I have dirty written on it. So if I'm in a hurry, like I'm chasing a bugle or I just don't want to stop and take the time to squeeze it out and filter it through the actual filter, I'll open this up, I'll dunk it in a creek, I'll get it full and then throw it in my pack and I know it's dirty. So if this is full and not extracted out, it's dirty water, I'll get to camp, screw this on and then squeeze it back into my clean stuff. So I usually keep one clean, right clean on it, right dirty on it. So, you know, super simple system. I have heard from a few folks that they'll freeze up in the winter. So, you know, if you're hunting a lot in like really, really cold sub-zero temperatures, I've done it and it worked fine, but I just kept it in the middle of my pack, like wrapped around a puffy or something. But that is the one potential downside to this one if you're trying to filter water when it's that cold. And again, I purposely leave it on the outside of my pack. So if it's in the bottom of my pack and I come by water and I want to get water real quick, then I got to pull my sleeping bag. I got to pull everything out and it's just a yard sale. So purposely leave it right here where it's easy. Especially again, if you're chasing a bugle and you don't have much time, you know, one buckle clip, unzip, grab water, and you're off to the races again. And so also on this side, it's always on this side, so I know where it's at. Just snacks, I mean, different bars, I really like these Peak Refuel brownie bites. They've got cookie bites. They're really good tasting, and they're pretty good for you. Lots of calories replenished there. Also, I have some of these the Wilderness Athlete pack out bars, pack out bites. Those are super good. And then I really like coffee in the morning. I'm kind of addicted to it. I can't go without it. I just don't like to. So I have some Black Rifle instant coffee. So all I need is some water, dump this in there, swish it around, good to go. I've also got some Peak Refuel. These ones are the Chad Mendez, the Money Punch. I typically don't do a very good job at drinking water. So any flavor or anything that excites me to drink more water, I bring. Also replenishes some electrolytes and just good for you there. Peak Refuel, if you guys are elite members, you get a discount on Peak Refuel bundles. So check that out as an elite member as well. It's kind of it on that side. Down here, I've got a phone holder, really easy to get to right there. We'll flip it over, go through the other side real quick, and then we'll dive into the main bag. How are we looking? All right, so Archery trekking poles, new this year. They're awesome. I've used quite a few different trekking poles. Really like the Archery ones. We are working with Archery as well for elite deals. So check those out. Trekking poles, you'll see I have their tent. Some of us use their game bags. Archery's make super awesome stuff. So I really like those. For years I didn't use trekking poles, and then a few pack outs I was able to borrow buddies, and now I never leave home without at least one of them, more often than not, 2 trekking poles. Side pouch here, I just keep things like calls, another Born and Raised Calco, headlamps. This one's a Peak headlamp. I really like that one, rechargeable. Quick snack bites in case I'm hungry. That way, as I'm hiking, I can just reach down and grab them. I don't need to pull everything on my pack. A few other little odds and ends in there, and then gloves. The Exo Mountain Gear guys turned me on to these. So I've tried, I've had First Light gloves, I've had Sitka gloves, I've had all sorts of gloves. The Mechanics gloves, you can get them on Amazon, but just any Napa hardware store, whatever, just the Mechanics gloves. These ones are like the warm weather gloves. They're awesome. I think they work probably just as good, probably better than any of the other gloves that I've had. So if you're in the market for gloves, those are pretty solid. And then I always bring at least one just actual water bottle. That way I can mix in coffee or whatever, to have some kind of a hard-sided little water bottle. Going to the top. So puffy jacket, this one's the First Light. It's their really lightweight, just puffy vest. Whether it's this one or a different brand, I always have a lightweight puffy either vest or jacket in my pack at all times, even if I don't think I need one. That's kind of my go-to. I am colder than I thought I'd be. I wish I had something, and it's always in my pack no matter what. So they're super lightweight. It doesn't take up, it packs down to the size of my fist. And I always leave that pretty accessible as well. If you stop to glass and your pack's full of, your sleeping bag and everything, you can just pull that out, put it right back in. But yeah, it's just kind of that insurance piece, if you will, that I always leave in my pack. Opening up the main bag, it's going to probably overflow here because it's stuffed pretty tight. So I usually pack my sleeping bag last. That way I can just shove it down in each crack and crevice to fill up space. When I'm in my 5,000 bag or a bigger bag, there's more space to fill up than this one. But sleeping bag, I have a Climate. I do not remember the name of this particular one, but it's a 30-degree bag. The reason I really like this one is I don't personally like the mummy style bags where you can't move your feet or you can't like roll around. It's so tight. So it's kind of a mummy style. So it's lightweight, but it's also elastic. So even down here at the foot, where it's like more of the mummy style, you can still stretch it out. So it's elastic. I've had this one for like 5 years probably, and it works great. So probably I'm not going to change anytime soon. Food, depending on how far I'm going, I've got a couple different setups. Jet boil is kind of the, standard a lot of people use. I do like a jet boil, but if I'm really trying to save some bulk and a little bit of weight, what I have is a MSR, I believe it's a Pocket Rocket 2. So it just screws right on the top of little jet boil. This one's a jet boil, but there's lots of different brands. Little canister screws right on the top of that, and then what I put everything in is just like a little tin cup here. Let's see if there's a brand. Tokas, Tokas light. It's just an ultralight. So then it sits on top. I can boil 2 cups water, I believe, in here, which is pretty much the max for what you need with peak. The cool thing about the peak meals is they take way less water than anything else. So if you're packing in water, you're going to save a lot of weight. So again, if I'm trying to save a little bit of size and weight, I take this one. If I don't really care about that, I just want it to be as efficient as possible, I will grab my jet boil instead. I'll set this off to the side. Really quick and simple cooking system. Peak refill meals. I just talked about the savings in the water, which really is great in my opinion. Saves packing a lot of weight in water just for your meals. Biscuits and gravy is one of my favorites for like a breakfast midday at 34 grams of protein, 2 cups of water. I have to force myself to like eat all of these. This one's 53 grams of protein, chicken Alfredo pasta, my second favorite, or probably my favorite dinner one. Again, 2 cups of water. So these things are awesome. If you haven't tried these already, it's as close to a home cooked meal as what you can get on the side of a mountain, I think. Tent, I have a 4-person Archery Absorica tent. So this right here is just the 4-person tent itself. I also have an insert for it that I typically do not bring. If I'm car camping or something of that nature, or if there's going to be, if I'm camping somewhere where there's a ton of mosquitoes and I don't want bugs in there or whatever, I'll bring that, but this is the 4-person tent. If I don't bring the insert with the mesh and the floor on it, I always bring Tyvek. So this is like I think it's like a 4x7 or something sheet of just rolled up Tyvek. It's waterproof. Put it on the ground. You can actually go on Amazon and buy. It's probably more than what it should be for the little bit of Tyvek it is, but it's cut to like the exact dimensions. It's like, I don't know, 3x7 or something of that nature. And then a quick tip with this, when it comes, it's really loud and crinkly and noisy. If you wash it and dry it a couple times, it just softens it up. It's a lot more pliable there. So I use that underneath, or I use that on the ground, and then my sleeping pad and then sleeping bag, just like a little lightweight pillow there. Pretty much sums it up for the tent. Back to cooking real quick. This one's a Fossils, but there's a few different ones. So it's kind of nice to have a plate or a bowl. They're flat. They don't really weigh anything. And then as you put it together, it becomes like a little bowl. So just kind of nice if you're eating in the backcountry to have something. You can also use them as a cup, whatever. I usually take that. And two, depending on if I'm bivvying like everywhere I go, I'm putting camp back in. That's going to dictate a few things. So a lot of this stuff, once you get to where camp is, if you're going to leave camp there, you could just leave it and then go hunt. Obviously, then my pack becomes nothing, weighs nothing, and I can go, go hunt for the day, come back to camp. Oh, one other thing I forgot. For the tent, it comes with center posts. So if I'm going to be leaving camp, I will take this so I can leave the tent up. If not, the Archery trekking poles are threaded, and there's an adapter that you can thread into this one, and that becomes your center pole as well. So that works great. The only downside is if you're leaving camp there and not tearing it down every day to put on your back, your trekking pole stays there. So really, I mean, innovative of our gully to make their trekking poles work with their tent so well, I think. Game bags for elk. I really like the Born and Raised Outdoors, the meat bags. That's what these are. They are specifically designed to fit elk quarters. So they built them to fit Roosevelt elk quarters, which then in turn make sure they'll fit pretty much any elk quarters. So I've used them last year. They were great. And again, they zip. I won't go into too much detail, but you lay them out and then they zip open, and then you can just set the quarter down in there, zip them back up. So even if you're by yourself, it's the best case scenario. That way you're not trying to lift an elk quarter and then put a pillowcase like sleeping bag underneath it and then shimmy it up. I also really like the Archery game bags as well. I use those a lot for deer. These work really well for deer too. You can fit 2 quarters in one bag. But sometimes if I'm antelope hunting or whatever, the Archery ones are awesome too. Another elite partner of ours, really good partner, Born and Raised, same as the Callco. You can get discounts on their meat bags as well from being an elite member. So in this little package is where I keep like an extra knife, extra blades for that knife, gloves if you want gloves, knife sharpener, that type of stuff. Just anything that when we get an animal down, everything that I need is in this one spot here. All the game bags, all the knives, all the knife sharpeners, everything I need is here. So basically if we get something down and we're in a hurry, just pull this out. It's everything I need to work up and store meat. Couple more items here and then we're finished up. I usually bring an extra pair of socks to rotate out. My feet sweat quite a bit, especially early season elk when it's hot out. So I'll rotate them out if I'm taking a nap or glassing or sitting in the same spot for a while. Take off your wet, dirty pair, throw them in a tree branch or something, let those dry out as well. So extra pair of socks. And then this is the other piece of clothing that's always with me. Super lightweight rain jacket. Also helps for like bucking wind a little bit if it's cold, but really lightweight. It's always in my pack no matter what. Rain jacket. Last thing in the bottom of here is this is my makeshift survival / medic kit. I also just got in the mail not too long ago a really cool one from My Medic. So this is a really well thought out, put together medic kit. It's a little bit heavy, and this one's the MyFac Mini. Even that, like for me, it's a little bit bulky and heavy. I'm not going to carry that around constantly with me. But what I'm probably going to do is take what I have compiled over the years and make the best of both worlds. Again, for the sake of time, we can dive into this for questions, but a few key things that I have in here at all times. Waterproof matches, obviously. I do always carry a tourniquet just because for what we're doing, whether it be dealing with broadheads or knives or bullets, if you're rifle hunting, for what we're doing, like I think the most likely scenario of a fatality or something really bad to go wrong in the backcountry is due to like blood loss. Again, if I'm cutting up an elk and it's dark or whatever, you're in a rush. I've cut my fingers before. I've seen it many times. You hear stories of, nicking blood vessels or even arteries. So I always carry a tourniquet. This one's a Rapids tourniquet, really lightweight. So I always have that. Oh, let's see, some paracord, always have that. Fire starter, general first aid stuff, Tylenol. So again, that's kind of over the years of what I think should be carried at all times. It's probably a little more than I need. It definitely is more than I need because I rarely ever break into this, but if I had to, I've got most of what I need there. So one other little package or pocket up top here. I always carry either one bigger one, or in this case, I've got 2 smaller, lighter weight battery chargers. Obviously, we're on the phone constantly using maps. If I'm tracking myself all day, it's going to eat up some battery. So if I'm doing, even if I do like a day hunt, I always have at least one of these so I can charge my phone up to 2 times should I need to. This particular case, I've got 2 of them in here, or I'll carry just one bigger one where I can charge my phone 5-6 times depending on how long I'm going to be out there. So always key to be doing that. You never want to be out there without maps. And I think that pretty much covers everything that I would carry. I also have a bag over here that has some items that I would always leave in the pickup just in case. Spotting scope. I'm not going to take a spotting scope and a tripod if I'm archery elk hunting personally. But if I'm say mule deer hunting, or if I've got a special tag and I want to see, okay, is that a, what caliber of bull is that 2 miles away before I hike up and down 3 drainages, I might take it. So I've got that type of stuff. And then also the other one that I didn't really dive into is the layering system. Depending on how warm or how cool it's going to be is going to dictate obviously what you're going to bring as far as clothing and camo. I usually like to hike a little bit cool, knowing I'm going to warm up, but then in the evenings it gets cold. So that's one nice thing about the puffies again, and really just watch the weather and add or subtract to this as much as possible. Same with the food, like, I didn't have enough food in here for probably a full 3-day, but close to it. If you go on a 5-day, you just bring more food. Like that's the one thing that doesn't really stay the same is the food consumption. So yeah, with that being said, I know Jack's still got his, and we've got a little bit of time left here, and then we'll dive into some questions. So I think Jack and I are going to switch spots, and then he'll run you through what he would carry on a daily hunt basis, and then we will answer some questions at the end.
Yeah, I'll switch spots with you here.
All right, so I'm typically hunting, just doing day hunts, whether that be around town and I'm leaving the house in the morning, or more commonly, I'm driving out to an area and I'm sleeping in the back of my Suburban. I'll have a camping setup in there, and then I'm leaving from the truck every morning and getting back to it at night. So if I'm leaving from home, it might change my food packing a little bit because I'll just eat breakfast at home or grab something. If I'm leaving from the truck, I'm typically, eating on my way in or when I get to my first glassing spot or something like that. But we'll get to the food here in a minute. We'll start with my bow. This is a Matthews Traverse. I think I got this in 2019, so this will be my 4th, 5th season with it. It's been a great bow, shoots really well. I know they've made some improvements, some of the new stuff. I just haven't really found a reason to upgrade yet. I shoot just a basic true fire, index finger release here. I've got a black gold 5-pin sight, so 20 through 60 are my pins. It's not a movable one. That's something I will probably upgrade in the future here. As far as arrows, I shoot a Black Eagle Rampage. It's been a good arrow for me. Have nocturnal lighted nocks, and then I do shoot an expandable broadhead. I know some people that's kind of controversial. I shoot 125 grain Sever broadheads. Last elk I shot, got a pass through on it. They've worked well for me. And I will caveat that by saying, I'm 6'3". I got a 30.5-inch draw length. I'm shooting a 70-pound bow. My arrow weight, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's somewhere like that 525, 540 range. So I can get away with some things that you might not be able to if you're shooting a lighter setup or you're not drawing 70 pounds. You got a shorter draw weight. But that's what's worked for me, and I'm going to stick with it. I do always carry a grouse arrow or 2 with me. I am a grouse addict. So if there's, rough grouse, spruce grouse, dusky grouse, whatever, while I'm elk hunting, I'm pulling out that grouse arrow and trying to get some meat for supper that night. And my quiver is a tight spot 7-arrow quiver. I got the 7-arrow basically so I could carry more grouse arrows while still having, 5 or 6 regular elk arrows. So that's the bow setup. My bino harness here. This is the Alaska Guide Creations. I believe it's the Kodiak Max. It's one of their biggest ones. To be honest, it's probably a little bigger than I need, but it's done a good job for me. This is actually my second one of these. I wore one of them out earlier this year and just picked this one up. I carry my bear spray right on my harness here, so it's always on my chest, kind of like Dylan with his pistol. If I take my pack off or something, I want to always have it right here. You'd hate to drop your pack and then need your bear spray and it's lying, not within reach. Binos, Vortex Viper 10x42s, great all around bino. I think especially for the money, these are pretty tough one to beat. Excellent for archery elk hunting. My rangefinder, it's an older SIG. It's a Kilo 1250. I don't believe they make this one anymore. I got this probably 7-8 years ago. It's not the most high tech. It's not the fanciest new thing, but it ranges quickly, ranges accurately. Great for archery hunting. I have no issues with it. On the side pouch here, I always just keep a Bic lighter. On the other side, I keep a little bottle of wind checker, smoke in a bottle. Always have that handy for me. And then I have a little optics cloth right here. This is a Spuds brand. You can get them at a lot of sporting goods stores for cleaning off my binos. I do wear contacts. Sometimes if I'm having issues, I have to wear glasses or something. So I keep that so I can keep those cleaned off and all that. That's basically all I carry in there archery wise. I do have my adapter plate for my binos if I want to throw them on a tripod, which I typically don't do archery elk season. That's more spring bear, deer, antelope type of thing. Boots, like Dylan, I'm running the Schnee's Bear Tooths. These are uninsulated. This will be going into my second season on these. They've been wonderful for me. Never had any leaks, issues with, getting wet, as long as you keep them up with the nick wax that they recommend there. They've been fantastic. I do run an orthotic in there. I've got some pretty bad feet that I've kind of dealt with my whole life. So I actually went to a doctor, got scanned and got some custom ones made. Whether you do something like that, or you do like a sheep feet or something, I highly recommend doing some sort of insole beyond what just the standard one in the boot is. Even like a Dr. Scholl's you get from Walmart, super feet are pretty common. Anything like that's probably going to be better for you than what they come with stock from the factory. Socks, again, I don't know how much money I've spent on socks trying to find something that works for me. I get blisters really easily. Even if it's middle of the season, my feet are in shape, sometimes I still just get a blister. These socks are some of the best I've ever found. They're a brand called Right Sock, WRIGHT. And it's like a dual layer where it's like a liner sock that's built in. These are like their mid-weight hiking socks. They have some super ultra light ones as well. They do, I think they have like a no blister guarantee on them. I've still managed to get some blisters, but they're far and away, they're the best sock that I've found to this point. It's a never-ending search. I'm always trying new stuff, but Right socks are right up there for me right now. Other clothing, what I'm typically wearing in when I'm hiking in, especially when it's hot. This is the First Light Wick hoodie. It's their lightweight merino. I love merino because when I'm hiking, I'm working up a sweat and it doesn't stink. I don't do anything. I don't believe Dylan does either as far as scent killer or anything like that. You can spray yourself down and try all the different products. When you're elk hunting and you're moving and you're hiking, you're working up a sweat, they're going to smell you. All you can do is play the wind. That being said, I'd rather not smell myself. So I do like the merino. You can wear it for days and days and days and doesn't develop a stink. And I like the hoodie for keeping sun off me. It's also a little bit more concealment. If I'm going in on a stock, I can flip that up and kind of camouflage myself a little bit. And then pants, they're the First Light corrugate guide pants. I've had this pair for, I think, 5+ years. I wear them all the time. They're fantastic. I really like the suspenders because I don't want anything around my waist for my pack, belt to rub on or anything like that. Big fan of those. I also like the pocket system on there. I like to carry a lot of stuff in my pockets so that I don't have to take my pack off every time I need something. On the one side here is another First Light. I forget the name of this, but it's just a lightweight neck gaiter. So can use it to keep you warm if it's chilly in the morning or when you're glassing. But then when I'm going in on a stock or, I'm sitting in a water hole, I'll put this on to cover my face up. I think that's one of the things that animals really see, and what busts a lot of animals is seeing your face and seeing your eyes and everything. So the more I can cover up, the better. I don't know if there's actually any truth to that, but if it gives you confidence, I'm a believer in it. Typical gloves I'll carry are these First Light, just fingerless merino gloves. Really good, nice and lightweight. For when you're hiking in, if your bow riser's cold or something like that, keep your hands a little warm. Again, I don't always wear these, but they're nice to have for when you're hiking out in the morning when it's cold, or hiking back to the truck when it gets chilly at night. So that's my basic clothing setup. As far as calling, similar to Dylan, I've got the Born and Raised bomb bugle tube. This thing's fantastic. I've also run a Phelps one in the past, another good option. Just started using this one last year and really liked the sound I was getting out of it. Going through my pack. This pack is a Mystery Ranch Selway. It is a 60-liter pack. I believe that translates to like 3,400 cubic inches. They actually don't make this pack anymore. I think they discontinued it a couple of years ago. The Pintler, I believe, is their current one. That would be similar layout, just a smaller version that honestly might be a little better for day hunting. This thing is definitely bigger than I need, but it does expand. If I was going to do, if I was going to go backpack with Dylan for 3 days, it expands out to be big enough. Satellite communicator. I usually carry that on my pack. It's probably smarter to carry it on my bino harness in case I were to take my pack off. I just haven't found a way that I like to carry it without it swinging and hitting me. So I typically do carry it on my pack. Like Dylan, Thermarest ZC. This thing has some holes in it and there's not a whole lot of foam left. So it might be time for a new one, but weighs almost nothing. It's better than sitting on, wet ground, cold ground. Smooths out some of the rocks, that good stuff. Going to the side here. Dylan and I didn't plan this, but we have a lot of gear in common. I too have the Argali trekking poles. These are brand new. I've never even used them, just got them about a week or so ago. Really excited to try these out. Don't always use them when I'm hunting, especially if I'm carrying a bow in my hand and a bugle tube in the other. Is typically how I hunt. I don't have a way to stow my bugle tube on this pack, but I always have these with me. If I get to a section that's really difficult, or doing a creek crossing or something, I can grab them and use them and put them back. And of course, if and when you get an animal down, invaluable to have on the pack out. Let's see here. We'll go into the main compartment. Other clothing I carry, probably unnecessary. I have been accused of packing too much stuff before, but the nice part about day hunting is it's not like I'm packing in 20 miles. If I'm solo elk hunting, I'm probably not going more than a couple miles in, because if I do get an elk down, I need to be able to get it out. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. This is the First Light Klamath quarter zip. It's a grid fleece hoodie, stops the wind pretty well. I really like it for, especially if I'm going to hike in glass somewhere. I'll get up there, I'll kind of let my sweat go down a little bit, then I'll throw this on just to be warm and cut some of the wind. Similar idea, just a First Light merino stocking cap. I've got a bunch of different ones I wear. This is the one I threw in. I've been snowed on, Labor Day weekend, opening weekend of elk in Montana. And, it could be 100 degrees. So you got to kind of plan for everything. This is something I don't always carry, but if there's a chance it's going to be a little cold, I bring that with. Mentioned socks earlier. Always carry a second pair of socks. These are darn tough. I believe this is just like their midweight hiker crew sock. These are also one of my favorite brand of socks. Darn Tough is tough to beat, no pun intended. And they have a lifetime warranty, which I don't know how that works with something like socks, but never had to use it. But apparently if you wear them out, you can contact them and they'll get you set up with a fresh pair. Let's see. I also carry puffies. I always have my puffy coat. This is the First Light Uncompagre puffy. It's kind of their midweight. It's not their heaviest, not their lightest. That's been a good one. Again, if you get caught in a snow squall, which can happen in the Northern Rockies in September, always nice to have. Depending on the weather, I may or may not pack the Uncompagre puffy pants. There's a chance it's going to be cold. I'm bringing them. They don't weigh that much. If I know it's going to be pretty warm, no matter what, I'll leave these in the truck. Like Dylan, I've also got the ultralight rain gear. These are the, I believe First Light calls these the Boundary storm tight pants. These are also nice for, if you're really going through even just wet grass or something like that in the morning, just to throw them on to keep dry. Find my rain jacket as well, ultralight, like Dylan said, even just to stop the wind or something like that. Doesn't weigh very much. Really nice to have. I too carry a Platypus 1 liter water bottle. I don't love a Nalgene, mostly because I don't like the sloshing around when it's in my pack. If it's not completely full or completely empty, it's not that often that I'm going to sit down and drink a whole liter of water. So with these, it's nice if this is full of water and I drink half of it down, I can suck the air out of it and get it so it's just water in there, so it's not sloshing. And I carry this mostly for mixing drink mixes, hydration mixes, things like that, just to have something a little different during the day. When it's hot out, get some electrolytes. I don't want to necessarily dump a bunch of those in my water bladder, just because I don't necessarily want that all day. And sometimes it can be hard to get that flavor out of the tube and everything. So those are, I think these are like $8 or something, not too expensive. Good thing to have. A lot of times I do carry a stove, even on just a day hunt. I like to sometimes make a Peak Refuel or whatever brand I have. Peak Refuel's typically been my favorite. This is the Chad Mendez elk ragu pasta left over from last year. My stove is the MSR wind burner, 1 liter. So everything is in this. It's got a little cup that comes off the bottom that I put on there too tight that I can't pull off right now. Fuel canister sits in there. Of course, the stove, the stand, pretty much everything's in there. Great for, I don't always make coffee, but sometimes I do. So nice to be able to boil water with that. Let's see. Baby wipes. Won't go into the mountains without something to take care of my business. Some people run toilet paper. I like these. Plus, these are super nice. You get an animal down, you can clean your hands up so that you're not full of, bloody hands and everything when you're packing out, things like that. These are heavy. If I was a smart man, I would take a bunch of these out and put into a Ziploc bag and just carry what I need. I've never been accused of being that smart. So a lot of times I'm packing the full pound of these in there. Water filtration, just like Dylan, Sawyer squeeze. I don't often use this, to be honest. I pack a 3 liter Platypus water bladder, which I'll show in a moment. That usually gets me through the day. If I'm going to be in an area where I know I'm going to be able to get water and I know have a high likelihood of running out of water, I'll pack this with. Just fell out here. Doesn't weigh very much. I mean, I could pack just the filter and not these bags, because the nice part of this, the threads on here will screw into that platypus bag. The only problem with that is then that bag is dirty and I'm not gonna be able to do any drink mixes or anything like that for the rest of the day, at least until I clean it out. But Sawyer Squeeze, never had any issues with it, works great. Let's see here. First aid kit, this is one I think I got at Sportsman's Warehouse or REI. It's just a weekend kit, says 3 people, 2 days. It's probably not, honestly, the best option all the time. There's a few things in here that are maybe missing, but for just starting out, it's got band-aids, it's got gauze, it's got like an ace bandage, tape. I do add 2 quick clot sponges. I have had to use quick clot in the field before. The last elk I got, I was not practicing knife safety. I was kind of pulling the knife back towards me when I was working on a quarter, and the blade stuck right in my knee, basically right into the kneecap. Wasn't necessarily a life-threatening injury, but I was bleeding pretty good. So I immediately, threw my stuff down, went to the pack, pulled this little kit out, had some quick clot in there, wrapped it up, threw my pants back on and got back to butchering the elk. So, like I said, it probably wasn't a life-threatening thing, but saved me from losing some blood, and that quick clot works pretty good. Doesn't always feel that great on you, but when you need it, it's nice to have. One thing I don't have in here that I am going to add is a tourniquet like Dylan. Just seems like something that's super useful to have, and doesn't weigh a whole lot. So that's something I will be adding. Getting to my kill kit, our Golly game bags. These are another new one for me this year. This is the large game meat on bone pack. So these will fit, elk size quarters on the bone. And then of course, anything smaller than that. They do also make like a boned out pack. I typically like to leave my quarters on the bone. They just kind of pack a little bit better versus just kind of being a bag of meat. Can kind of move around a little bit. And like I said earlier, I'm typically not that far from the truck, especially if I'm hunting solo and I need to be able to, get that back to the truck. So the weight savings of boning it out for me is kind of not as big of a concern. Kill kit. This is just a mystery ranch. I think they call these Zoid bags. Just nice little storage thing. Another new item for me this year. This is the Montana Knife Company Stonewall Skinner. Just got this summer. Haven't been able to use it yet. So we'll save the verdict for afterwards, but I don't really have any doubts that it's going to be fantastic. I like the little bit more belly on it, a little bit bigger for skinning out. I do also, in the past, I've got this Outdoor Edge kit. I think I got it, donated to RMEF. It's got a little bone saw that I rarely, if ever, use. And then it's, kind of your standard exchangeable blade knife. These things are wicked sharp. They are nice to be able to switch out. I carry some extra blades in here. Probably don't need it since I have the Stonewall Skinner there, but like I said, there's just a certain level of comfort. I know I'm going to be able to get it done with this knife, so I'm going to bring it along. I also carry this little Work Sharp pocket knife sharpener, more for the MKC knife, whether I'm going to need it or not. Again, sharpens the knives up real quick, weighs next to nothing. Just a nice thing to have in there. And that's basically my kill kit. As far as tags go, last year, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks came out with an app where you can have all of your tags downloaded on your phone, e-tags. I didn't use them last year. This year, I decided to jump in and do the e-tags. Killed 2 turkeys and a bear this spring. The e-tag process was awesome. So more and more states seem to be doing that. I've heard some states' apps are maybe better than others, so that's a determination you'll need to make. But for me, it's been pretty convenient to not have to worry about, are my tags in my bird hunting vest? Are they with my fishing gear? Are they in my hunting pack? Are they in the truck? I just know they're on my phone, which I'm going to have with me at all times. As far as my main hydration, if I can get it out here, I run the Platypus Big Zip Evo 3 liter. Never had an issue. I've had a couple of these, 2 liter and 3 liter. Never had an issue with a leak or anything. And I really like this opening at the top. You can just take this blue part off. It squeezes open so that I can have it in my pack. And all I have to do is pop open the top and I can dump water in there. If I've purified some, I don't have to take the whole pouch out, whole bladder out, or anything like that. Pretty slick. I'm a fan of those. I've never used anything else. I'm sure there's a lot of good options on there, but I must have lucked out when I bought one of these a few years ago and haven't seen a reason to switch. Getting into some of my food. Gummy bears, particularly the Haribo, are my favorite. I know there's some Black Forest and Albanese fans out there, but these are my favorite. Those are great for quick boost of energy, quick sugars to get into your bloodstream there for, right before a pack out or before a heavy push or something. And, sometimes if it's been a long day, you just need some gummy bears to pick you up. And those are fantastic. Moving to the top of my pack here. This is just kind of a hodgepodge of things. So I have a Peaks long handle titanium spoon for getting down into those Peak refuel pouches. I've got a Sea to Summit one of these somewhere. There's a bunch of different brands. They're all pretty good, but you definitely want to have the long handle there. Other snacks, Cliff Bars are my favorite. Electrolyte mix. It's just like the grocery store brand, electrolyte hydration mix. I think these are about $1 a piece for the pouches. Pretty good stuff. Ritz sandwich crackers, one of my favorite snacks. The cheese, not the peanut butter. Kind protein breakfast bar. Another drink mix. Like Dylan, I'm not as big of a coffee guy as Dylan, but I do enjoy it sometimes. This is Black Coffee Roasting. It's a local Missoula town here. Their instant sticks are good. The Black Rifle ones Dylan had are really good. Starbucks Via, if I can't get either of those two, good as well. My typical breakfast, a lot of times, is just going to be something like this Gatorade protein bar. These are pretty good. It's 350 calories, 13 grams of fat, 40 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein. Does have a fair amount of sugar in it, which is not necessarily the enemy when you're out exerting yourself and you're burning up, those carb stores in your muscles. You do need to replenish them. Most of my food, to be honest, I buy at the local grocery store. There's a lot of great kind of hunting specific or backpack specific brands out there that make fantastic things. But don't be afraid to just, go to your local grocery store. Don't feel like you have to spend top dollar. Find some foods that you like and go with those. I think that's it for my food. I do have one of these little gel shots. I just told you, you don't have to go with outdoor specific companies, but I think I got these. We had some of these at the office or something, like free samples. This is just a goo energy gel. Got some amino acid, sodium, 35 milligrams of caffeine. That's another good one for just a little boost during the day. Leuko tape. I always carry this with me in the top pouch. If you've never heard of it before, it's Leuko, Leuko tape. I buy it off Amazon. I haven't really found it in any like stores or pharmacies. This stuff's amazing. If you have blisters, hot spots, any kind of chafing, put it on, kind of rub it in. Sometimes I need to let it sit a little bit and it'll adhere to your foot. And I've had this stuff on and 2 weeks later, it'll come off in the shower. It'll stay on through being wet, swimming with it, going into the shower. This stuff's fantastic. You could use it, for anything else you need tape for too. If I need to repair a piece of gear or something, it's maybe not quite as good as duct tape, but it could be used for things like that in a pinch. I've got some of my calls. I've got a mixture of Phelps and Born and Raised diaphragms in here. My go-to typically has been the Phelps pink. I've got a gray one as well, the gray Phelps. And then born and raised, these are the September and the Reason. They're the blue and orange ones. Found those work for me as well. Something we get questions on, hey, what's a good diaphragm? What's a good call? You really do have to just try them out. Everybody's mouth is a little different. Calls aren't overly expensive. They're $7-8 a piece. So there is some money in there. Typically, buy a handful, find what works for you. And like Dylan, I've got the born and raised. I believe this is the two-tone. Just a external kind of cow estrus call. Usually wear that around my neck when I'm out hunting. This thing it's aluminum on the end. Great sound. You can get super loud with that if you need to. Battery pack. This one's from OtterBox, Mophie, Dark Energy. A lot of good brands. This one will typically give me 2 to 3 charges, which is more than I need, but it is nice to have for my satellite communicator and my phone. What else is in here? Headlamp. This is a Black Diamond Storm, I believe is the model. It's like 350 lumens. This thing's pretty bright. Downside, it will eat up some batteries if you're running it super high, but I typically run it on low. The only time I run it on real high is when I'm like blood tracking or something in the dark. You can run it green, red, blue settings on it. So I'll typically hike in with the green light on. That's supposed to not spook game, and it doesn't hurt your night vision. So if I have to shut it off, it's not like I've been using a bright white light and my eyes need to adjust. So there's that. Going over to my side pouch here. This is kind of emergency survival type gear. Pyro Putty fire starter. This is just a little, I think 1 ounce can. This stuff's really good if you need to start a fire, either for a survival scenario or if you just want to have a little bonfire. Maybe I got one of those grouse I was talking about earlier and I want to cook it up. I carry a backup headlamp. This is the exact same model, Black Diamond Storm. I like having 2 of the same so that if my one dies and I have to put another one on, it's the same controls. It's all the same. I don't have to, remember, oh yeah, this is different headlamp. Just the exact same thing. I think my dad gave me this when I turned 12 and started deer hunting. This is it's got a whistle. It's got like a waterproof compartment here. Throw matches in. It's got a little compass on the top. Carry that. Never had to use it. Hope to never have to. Even though I work for onX Maps, I still always just carry an old school compass with me. Again, never had to use it, but I just remember my grandfather when he was teaching me to hunt, he always had a compass with me, and he would probably be very disappointed in me if I didn't carry one with. Extra batteries for headlamp, and these are batteries for this flashlight. This is just it's a Gander Mountain brand flashlight. Gander Mountain, I don't even think's around anymore, but super bright flashlight. Batteries are dead in it right now. Good thing I checked. Like having a headlamp and a flashlight sometimes for blood trailing to cover more area. I don't use it all that often, but it's nice to have when you need it. Say, heaven forbid, both your headlamps will go out. I like to have that backup. I think that's basically all of my stuff. Any questions that came in on my stuff, Dylan?
Nothing in particular. I'll bounce over there and get that cleared off. We can answer a few live.
Yeah, bring that over and we'll.
Now we've got what looks like a used gear yard sale.
Garage sale here.
Back up. All right. So there's lots of really good questions. What are some tips for effectively using and adjusting your pack suspension system? So I can run through real quick. Not going to be quite the same now that I don't have anything in my pack, but I have picked up a few tips over the years for just like which straps to tighten first and whatever. One thing I will say is anytime you get a pack, especially a new pack, throw some weight in there, throw like 40-50 pounds in there, and hike with it. Make sure the first time you're packing out with quarters on is not the first time you've had weight in your pack, because it will ride differently. And it's kind of a guess and check game for me anyways. It usually is with a new pack. I'll put 40-50 pounds in it, go on a hike, move the suspension system up one, down one, see the difference. Does it make a difference? Does it really matter? You know, maybe go really heavy for a hike and say, you know, what am I going to do different with the load lifters, etc. But a couple real quick tips. And I'm regurgitating information that I learned mostly from the folks at EXO. What I always want to do, what you always want to do, what works best for me, I'll say it that way. What works best for me is start with everything loose. So nothing is tight. All the straps are super loose. Do the hip belt first. So what I typically do is I like to get the pack up when and you probably can't see this real well, but get the pack up above your hips. Your goal is to kind of get the center of the hip belt where you wear your pants, or in my case, even just a little bit higher. So I'll get the pack up and I'll tighten down the hip belt first. And then what I do is I will make sure my load lifters are loose, tighten my shoulder straps. And with these, like, especially, I don't want to reef on them and get them really, really tight. It's just comfortable. So my hip belt is fairly snug right now, which is keeping the pack up, lifted. And then I'm just kind of snugging up my shoulder straps. Again, I'm not making them tight by any means. And then load lifters, again, same thing. You're not trying to reef on them and really like pin it to your neck like this. Obviously, if you're packing out quarters and you have a really heavy load, you're going to use these more. But I'm just barely getting them engaged there. And then I do chest strap last. One of the things I used to do wrong, or not right for me, is I would cinch this really tight and make sure that these were, you know, pushing in here. Not necessarily the best. Again, whatever's most comfortable for you. If you like it that way, you're going to know if it works well for you or not. But what I've learned over the years is if I let them just be in their natural position and just add a little bit of tension, that's all that I wanted. I don't want to reef on this. Nothing is really tight except for my hip belt right now. So if you're doing it properly, you should be able to put your fingers in here. Like there shouldn't be so much weight on your shoulders that everything's just compressed down and it's pulling you back like this. Your hip belt being in the right spot and tight should keep everything upright, and there should be at least a little bit of space in between your shoulders and that. So again, there's a lot of ways to do it. That works best for me. And I've asked the folks at EXO and other pack companies a lot of questions. So
yeah, that's one thing I've heard was if your shoulders and your neck are sore or tired at the end of the day, that's an indicator that you've got too much weight on your straps here and not enough on your hip belt. Your hip belt should be carrying the majority of the weight.
Yep. Common mistakes to avoid when packing or optimizing your gear. I think I'll go real quick and then I'll let you take a stab at it. For me, it's packing. Again, I'm regurgitating this from Mark at EXO. Packing your fears. I used to carry around way too much stuff. Didn't really need any of it, and then I was always wonder why I was one of the last people to get to camp at night, because I had an extra 12 pounds, 15 pounds in my pack. So I think, like, what do you actually need it? Do you not? And the other thing with organization, I dove into it a little bit, but just be mindful of where you put things. Again, if I'm trying to filter water on the way into camp, I don't want to put my water filtration at the bottom of my backpack. Like, just be thinking of these things. It's easy to, okay, here's what I need. I'm going to just shove it in my backpack and hit the trail. But just be mindful of it when you're doing it. And then the first time you do have to dig for something in the bottom of your pack when it's loaded for 2 days, just take a mental note. Next time you do it, don't put it there.
Yeah, that's, to me, I've been caught on needing something and it's in the bottom of my pack or it's stowed away. Stuff that you're going to commonly need should be towards the top or towards, right behind a zipper or something you can get to easily. Something like, I've heard a lot of guys, their sleep system, they're like, I'm not going to need that till the end of the day. They kind of put that down towards the bottom or something. Everyone does a little bit differently.
The other thing with that is like sleeping bag. There's a couple different ways. Like, shove it down in there to fill the voided space, or what I've done in the past is put sleeping bag at the bottom, because then it keeps your heavier items up.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't want to put all of my water at the bottom of my pack, because then that's just gonna pull your back as you're hiking. Anything heavy, I'm trying to keep next to my back up against the frame and like mid to top third of your back. Similar to when you're packing out meat. I know we had a question, both of our your bag splits from the frame too, right?
Yep.
So both of our packs, you know, they're not necessarily giant enough that you can shove out quarters down in them, especially my 2200. But the bag separates, you load your meat, get it all strapped in, tighten down, and then the bag comes back up. So same thing with meat. You know, I don't want to put all of the meat, I don't want to put the elk hind quarter at the very bottom. I want to get it up a little bit so it's kind of in the center of your back.
Yeah, if you think about what made sense to me coming from, you know, playing football and track and stuff, is if I'm going to do a back squat, I'm going to have the bar at the top of my shoulders. Imagine having all that weight around my lower back or my lumbar. That's going to be a lot harder, a lot more stress on my back than having it up high. You know, you're going to be a lot stronger that way.
We got
There's a couple. What I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna post the giveaway link in the chat for everybody. That giveaway is good. It's open until midnight tonight. So if you're watching this on YouTube after, it's not gonna be live anymore. But for everybody that's still on with us, we're giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts. It takes a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes, a couple seconds, put your info in there. I'll shoot you an email tomorrow if you've won. And we'll get your shirt sent out to you as well. We did have a couple questions that people sent in earlier. Couple that I thought were common questions. Do you carry a bone saw? That was something you saw in my pack. I do sometimes carry one. The only time I'm ever sawing on an animal personally is if I'm trying to take the ribs out, which I do on deer. I haven't done it on an elk yet. I'll bone out the ribs on an elk. But that saw is nice for sawing those ribs away from the spinal column and splitting the sternum. Absolutely not a necessity. If you're debating it, I would say leave it at home. You can break down an animal completely with just a knife.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say with that is watch videos. If you haven't done it with just a knife, watch videos. Once you've done it a couple of times and failed or really struggled for a while, it seems like that. Like the first elk or first animal I do every year where the hip joint is, if I'm doing gutless method, it's either takes me 2 seconds and I'm like, yep, that's exactly perfect, or it's like 12 minutes and I'm scratching my head. Like I've done this so many times. How am I struggling so badly with this right now? So watch some videos. There's a lot of really good tutorials online, YouTube. Gutless method is what I typically use. It really just depends on how far away from the pickup am I. Are we, you know, what's my end goal with the meat on what I'm gonna do. But yeah, as Jack said, you do not need a bone saw. All the joints and the elbows and stuff you can get really easily with a knife. You just have to know where they're at, or you will struggle and get really frustrated.
Yeah. And one thing I would recommend to people, if you've never done the gutless method, and especially if you're, you know, coming from the not west and you deer hunt, or even if you are in the west and haven't done it on an elk before, if you shoot a deer and it's legal in your state to part it out in the field, do the boneless method on a deer or a pronghorn or something. It's all the same as an elk, just a smaller package. So that's a good way to practice if you're nervous about, you know, breaking an elk down for the first time if you haven't done it before. Question about carrying the bow on your pack. I included this one because I never put my bow on my pack.
The only time that I do is when I'm hiking in the dark. Like if I get to a trailhead, I'm like, yeah, I've got 3 miles and I'm not, you know, obviously I can't shoot an elk in the dark. So in times like that, I will leave it on my pack. During daylight hours, even if it's midday and you don't think you're gonna run into an elk on the trail and you're hiking out, like I always have my bow in my hand. Far too many times, like, you know, I can't say this has happened to me personally, but if it's on your backpack and a bull runs across the trail and stops real quick and your bow's on your pack, that you're not doing any good. So in the dark, I will strap it on. It's really nice to do that if you know you're not going to need it. Same with a rifle for me. But yeah, I mean, most straps just have clips on the back, and with my pack loaded full, I'll just lay it on the back and make sure it's up high enough though, so if you sit on the log or something, your cam isn't digging into rocks or hitting anything. So that is one tip, I guess, is if you are gonna do that, I put it like really high. So even the top of the bow is like even up here, obviously not tall enough to where it's loose or you're catching it on things. But if you are gonna sit down with that pack on, just be super aware you don't want to smash your cam into a rock.
And one thing I do, if I need to use my hands or I'm just tired of carrying it, I'll just take my bow and put it across my shoulder like this. Sometimes just hold it with one hand. When I have my pack on, there's a kind of a shelf there, and this thing will ride there. And I've hoofed it up mountains pretty good with that riding there, and it hasn't fallen off. So that's another option if you just don't want it in your hand for maybe need to use your trekking poles or something. Just another way to carry it if you got the stabilizer on there.
What is a piece of gear that you never use, but it's always in your pack? I know we've talked about it a few times. The first one that comes to mind is tourniquet again. I hope I never, ever have to use a tourniquet. That's like last case scenario, but I think also a very smart piece to have in there. Again, like if anything bad is going to happen, minus like a grizzly bear encounter or something, illness, giardia or whatever, like if anything bad's going to happen, it's probably going to be due to a cut or, God forbid, a rifle or a pistol discharge or something of that nature, which is going to sometimes require a tourniquet. So that's one for me that I probably hope I never, ever have to use, but it's always going to be in there no matter what.
Yeah, I would say, my medical gear, first aid gear in general, I have had to use the quick clot one time, and the ace bandage to wrap it up. But beyond that, just my basic, first aid kit and fire starter, that kind of stuff that I don't typically use, just would be in a survival scenario. And that kind of leads into this next question here. We've been quoting the guys from EXO quite a bit. I think I heard Steve say it a few times where he'll go through his pack at the end of a season. And if there's an item in there that you haven't used all year, or it's been multiple years, and you're like, man, I've never used this, get rid of it. Besides, your first aid gear, things like that, you're going to need it. But if you're packing, extra underwear or extra gloves or extra clothing item, some other extra piece of gear, and it never gets used, probably a good indicator you could leave it out of your pack and save some weight.
Yeah, I think multiples too. Like it's good to have backups on headlamp. I think that's really important. Knives, it's good to have a couple. But I think you can get carried away with I'm bringing 3 knives and they're all heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have my MKC knife, which is my main knife, and then I have a Havalon blade knife as a backup. And that's my backup because it's incredibly light. It's an ounce or less.
Yeah.
And the blades weigh nothing. So I think not carrying multiples. I know in the past, I've carried an extra pair of pants.
Yeah.
Because it's the forecast is calling for rain, so it might get wet. And then I don't want to be having wet pants for 3 days. It's you don't need an extra pair of pants. That's just packing your fears. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's okay to be a little uncomfortable. If our goal is to be comfortable, we don't want to be miserable out there. But if our goal is to be comfortable, we wouldn't be going and sleeping in the woods for 4 days.
Yeah.
So I always try to keep in the back of my mind too, if I get, I always have a rain jacket, but if I get a little wet, if my pants get wet in the morning, it's not the end of the world. I will survive.
Yeah. And for me, day hunting, this is kind of probably a do as I say, not as I do, because I do probably pack too much stuff. I have some redundant items and things like that. And, if I'm a mile from the truck and I need something, and I keep those duplicates in there, I got to hike a mile out, hike a mile back. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I'm also not an ounce counter. Looking at me, you can tell I'm not a small human. So if I really wanted to save some weight, I could probably just eat a few more salads and cut a bunch of weight real quick there.
Pack a lot more weight than someone like me or a lot of other people and not have it, affect you as much.
Well, we'll see.
But and it really, at the end of the day, it's really all preference. Are you an ounce counter? Does it, at the end of the day, are you really fit or are you not?
Yeah.
And do you want to be, is your goal to be comfortable out there more than your goal to have 2 less pounds in your backpack? Or like, do you even notice that? Everybody's different, so there's no right or wrong. You know, you have to do it this way. Your pack has to be 35 pounds for 3 days or whatever. Like, there's no right or wrong answers to that. If you're comfortable and you use what you pack, great. If you don't use it, try to go a weekend or a day without it. See if you miss it. If you miss it, throw it in the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some questions in there about pack weight. I've never weighed a pack. I honestly don't know what my typical loadout weighs. Like I got 3 liters of water in there. That's heavy. So I'm probably in the 20s, I would guess, maybe pushing 30. Which I'm a bigger guy. So a lot of that, the weight question is a lot of times more a percentage of your weight.
Yeah.
You know, if you're 150 pounds versus if you're like me and you're 300 pounds, what feels heavy to you is going to be totally different. So if you're 150 and you're, you know, a lighter build, you're probably not going to be able to carry as much comfortably as somebody my size can, but you're probably going to smoke me up the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, again, I typically don't weigh mine. I'm guessing with everything that was in my pack. I did forget a couple of things I really don't need to dive into, but my sleeping pad, my blow up sleeping pad is in there. And then I believe one other thing.
Do you carry a pillow?
Yeah, like just a little inflatable. So if I'm doing overnight, I typically have a little bit bigger of a puffy. Puffies are great for this to use as pillows, or but I do have like an inflatable Cedar Summit, I believe it is, really lightweight pillow.
That's
and
what I
then
have.
sometimes I'll put my puffy on top of it to
Yeah.
make it a little more comfortable.
I've heard of guys stuffing game bags full of puffies and
Mhm.
soft items and stuff and using that too.
Yeah, but I would say with everything in my pack, once I added a little more food for 3 days, I would probably be in that 32 to 35, like guessing,
Yeah.
maybe low 30s. And that's trying to be weight conscious for me.
Yeah.
You know, again, everybody's different. I guarantee somebody could go out there with no shelter and,
Yeah.
you know, just like a little lightweight tarp. I love the 4-person TP tent because if you're with 2 people, you still have room for all your gear. It's really spacious. You can stand up in it. If I'm socked in and stuck in my tent for a day and a half, I'm comfortable. I like that. It's worth packing for me. But I would, you know, I would eliminate, it's not a lot, but 2, 3, 4 pounds, probably 3 pounds.
Yeah.
Just if I went with like a lightweight tarp instead. So for me, it's worth packing, but I could get lighter if I really wanted to.
Yeah, there's always trade-offs. Everybody's got kind of that 1 or 2 things that you know is going to keep you out there longer. Whether it's, I know if I don't get good sleep, I'm not going to be effective the next day, or I'm going to be grumpy and I'm going to be complaining. Pack the extra weight to get a good night's sleep. Person like me, I drink a ton of water. I like a lot of food. That's what's going to make me grumpy, is if I don't have some snacks out there. So I probably pack more food than I need, but what kills animals is just time in the woods a lot of times. So anything that can kind of keep you out there longer, if it's a little bit heavier, something like that, I think it's worth it a lot of the time.
Yeah. One other thing I forgot to mention, I honestly forgot because I forgot I was wearing it. Born and Raised, Calco, another one. They just came out with it. Well, correct me, it's not out yet, but it's prototype, brand new call setup. Super awesome. I was playing around with it today. I definitely need to practice with it before I feel super confident in the woods. But I always like a call really handy. I always have diaphragms close that I can keep in my mouth. So if I draw, I can stop a bull if I need to. But this thing should be being released soon, and it is incredibly light, super cool. And I'm definitely just going to keep that around my neck at all times.
There's a couple other quick questions in here, some good ones. Craig asked, what name of the tent again that you used?
So Archery, they have a 1-person out, I believe, 2-person, 4-person, 8-person. This one's a 4-person Absorka. Just a awesome TP tent, 4-person. It's really spacious. You can use it with or without a stove. For late season stuff, it's really lightweight, bomb proof, awesome stuff. So if you're an elite member, you get a deal on our Archery as well. Brad's a super cool guy. He makes his stuff. He really gets after it, and he makes really awesome gear for him that he sells to everybody else. So yeah, check out our Archery.
Few other questions here. Mark asked about getting the antlers removed. I mentioned using the bone saw for that. Most of the time, I'm gonna pop the head off.
Yep.
You can get, it's called the Atlas joint. Right at the back, that hole in the back of the cranium. You technical term, that's the foramen magnum. Oh boy, I learned that in school. So that's where you can get the knife in there, and this is why I will always have a fixed blade knife, is for that and for popping joints. I'm not going to do that with a replaceable blade. Those things can break. And then you can just twist the head off, and I'm gonna pack that whole thing out. I like Euro mounts a lot of times, especially on an elk. I'm probably not just gonna skull cap it and do the antlers, so I'm gonna pack the head out like that. I might skin it off or whatever, but
That is a good point, though. If you do plan on potentially not needing the skull, not wanting to do a European mount, maybe a lightweight saw. I mean, a lightweight saw is gonna save you a lot of weight in a skull. So, I mean, I've even
That's true.
caped off, the face and everything to save a little bit of weight. You can remove the lower jaw.
yep,
It's kind
I've
of
done
a
that.
pain. It takes a while. It's tedious, but you do save some weight with that. So,
I mean, a couple pounds.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not into European mounts, and you want to just do that, I would definitely recommend the lightweight bone saw then.
Yeah. What do you do for food storage overnight in bear
Food
country?
storage overnight. It's a good question. We are in Montana. I've come to terms that there's just grizzly bears everywhere. I used to think that there were certain ranges, and if I'm over here, I'm in bear country. If I'm over here, I'm not. I think it's false. There's grizzlies everywhere, and that's the way I'm just gonna go about it. Even black bears, like obviously you don't want a black bear coming into your camp at night, a little different story. But what I typically do is I will hang my food. There's no like magical height number. I do it, I'm intelligent about it. Does it make sense where it's hung? Is it high enough that a bear standing up or clawing isn't going to be able to get to it? I will typically 50 yards from my tent ish. It just depends like on the situation. Depends on, which way the wind's blowing. Obviously, you don't want your food hanging here, your tent here, and the wind blowing here. Because then as the bear smells your food downwind, coming into your food upwind, you don't want your tent in between that. So like be strategic on which way is the wind blowing. Is it going to be consistent? Like you want that scent blowing away from your tent. That way a bear coming to that scent, should he come to the scent, isn't going to walk over you sleeping in your sleeping bag to get to it. So just be mindful of it. I don't personally go off any like has to be X number of feet. Just hang it, don't have it in your camp, and be smart.
There was one mention in here of like surgical gloves, which is something I do not always, but often carry. I went to Harbor Freight and got some nitrile gloves. They are pretty nice to have just for when you're done, take them off and your hands are clean. It's not that I'm grossed out by blood or guts or anything, but there are some diseases you can get if you cut yourself. And for me, it's not a butchering job until I cut myself. Happens at least once every time. And especially, I know this is an elk class, but like bears especially can have some nasty stuff in their blood. So you don't want any contamination from that. I've heard of guys getting like blood poisoning and stuff from that. So
yeah,
that's something, if you want to carry them, absolutely. I recommend them. If you don't carry them.
I usually use them too, especially late season. Like, again, I know this is out focus, but
Mhm.
late season when it's really cold, like if it's 0 degrees and I'm, working up a deer or even just gutting a deer to drag it to the pickup if you're close. That blood and stuff drying and freezing on your hands is not comfortable. So
Yeah.
I typically use them.
And I've seen guys will get a size or two big and have like some thin wool gloves and then put that over so that you can keep them warm and keep those dry. All right. Well, we're over an hour and a half. So thanks everybody for joining us. I could talk about gear all day, but we got to cut this one off. So any final closing words?
No, thank you guys for taking the time. Hopefully, you picked up a thing or two, maybe something new you want to try. Again, we like gear. We try out quite a bit of gear, so use that. I would not call myself a gear expert, but I spend a ton of time in the field as often as possible, and I know what works for me. So, test things out. If you have a buddy who has a piece of gear that you want and it's really expensive and you're not sure you're going to like it or need it, hey Jack, you out hunting this weekend? Nope, sweet. Can I borrow your sleeping pad to see if I like it? Cause I don't really like mine.
Yep.
So, share gear, make sure you like it before you buy it type deal.
Mhm.
But like Jack said in the beginning, the best gear you have is, what you're taking with you and just get out there and hunt. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Gear is kind of a cool, fun thing to talk about and a necessity when you're out hunting, but also just get out there and hunt. It doesn't really matter what camo or backpack or anything you have. Is more important that you're spending days in the
Yeah.
woods.
There's plenty of elk killed every year, I think, in jeans and tennis shoes.
Yep.
Guys who do that. So thanks again, everybody. If you're interested in these types of classes, we are doing a whitetail pack dump in about a month in early October. So watch out for that one. And all of our old master classes are put up on our YouTube channel. So we mentioned the guys from EXO. We just had Mark on, I think that was a couple weeks ago, about a
Yep.
month ago, talking about backpack hunting. So if you're new to backpack hunting, go to our YouTube channel and find the backpack hunting class we did with EXO. That's got some great tips in there on just general, what to pack, how to go about setting up a hunt. So that's one we probably should have mentioned earlier, but that's a good one. Beyond that, hope everybody, if you're getting out this weekend or this season, hope you have some luck and hope everybody has a good night.
See you guys.